The fluorescent hospital lights flickered overhead as Lisa Stillman stood frozen in the doorway, her hands trembling. Inside that sterile room lay Jack Bartlett, the man she loved, hooked up to machines that beeped rhythmically. But it wasn't the sight of Jack that made her blood run cold. It was Amy, standing by his bedside with guilt written all over her face. Lisa's voice cut through the silence like a knife. You knew something was wrong with him, and you said nothing. This wasn't just about a medical emergency anymore. This was about trust, family, and a secret that could tear Heartland apart forever. It started 3 days ago, though nobody at Heartland knew it yet. Jack had been working in the barn, fixing a fence post that had been loose for weeks. Amy walked past and noticed him gripping his left arm, his face pale and covered in sweat. "Grandpa, are you okay?" she asked, concern flooding her voice. Jack waved her off immediately. "Just tired, Amy. Nothing a good night's sleep won't fix." But Amy saw something in his eyes, something that told her this wasn't just exhaustion. She wanted to push, wanted to call a doctor right then and there, but Jack was stubborn. He always had been. "Don't you dare tell Lisa," he said firmly. "She'll just worry. You know how she gets." Amy hesitated. She stood there in that barn, torn between respecting her grandfather's wishes and doing what she knew was right. In the end, she chose loyalty. She chose to trust that Jack knew his own body. The next day, Jack seemed better. He was up early, making coffee and joking with Lou about her latest business venture. Amy watched him carefully, looking for any sign that something was still wrong. He seemed fine. Maybe he really had just been tired. Maybe she had overreacted. But that night, as Amy was finishing up the evening feeding, she heard a crash from the house. She ran inside to find Jack on the kitchen floor, clutching his chest, his breathing shallow and rapid. "Grandpa," Amy screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called for an ambulance. The next 20 minutes were a blur of panic and fear. The paramedics arrived, loaded Jack onto a stretcher, and rushed him away with sirens blaring. Amy followed in her truck, her mind racing with guilt. She should have said something. She should have told someone. She should have called Lisa immediately. But she had made a promise to Jack. Now, standing in the hospital waiting room, Amy felt like she was drowning. Lou had arrived minutes after her, confused and terrified. Tim showed up shortly after, demanding answers that Amy couldn't give. And then Lisa walked through those doors. Lisa, who had been at a horse auction 2 hours away. Lisa, who had no idea that her husband had been struggling. Lisa, whose face transformed from worry to absolute devastation when she saw Amy's expression. "Where is he? What happened?" Lisa demanded, her voice high and strained. Amy tried to explain, tried to find the right words, but they all felt inadequate. He collapsed. His heart. They're working on him now. Lisa's eyes narrowed. She knew Amy too well. She could see the guilt, the secret hiding behind those words. "Amy," Lisa said slowly, her voice dangerously calm. "Tell me everything." "And I mean everything." That's when the walls started to close in. That's when Amy realized there was no way out of this conversation. No way to avoid the truth that was about to destroy everything. Amy opened her mouth to speak, but the words stuck in her throat like broken glass. How could she explain this? How could she tell Lisa that she had watched Jack struggle and done nothing? The waiting room suddenly felt too small, too crowded with family members who were all staring at her, waiting for answers. Lisa took a step closer, and Amy could see the storm brewing behind her eyes. This wasn't the composed, elegant Lisa Stillman everyone knew. This was a wife terrified of losing her husband, and she wanted blood. "Amy, I asked you a question," Lisa said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than a scream. Lou touched Lisa's arm gently. "Maybe we should wait until we hear from the doctors before we start pointing fingers." But Lisa shook her off. She had known Amy since she was a little girl. She had watched her grow into a strong, capable woman. And right now, she could see that Amy was hiding something big. The truth came spilling out like water from a broken dam. Amy told them about the barn, about Jack gripping his arm, about the sweat and the pale face. She told them about his warning not to tell Lisa, about how he insisted he was fine. With every word, Lisa's face grew harder, colder. You saw him like that and you said nothing? Lisa's voice cracked on the last word. He told me not to worry. You, Amy said weakly, knowing how pathetic it sounded. He told you not to worry me? Lisa repeated, and then something inside her snapped. Amy, I am his wife. You don't get to make that decision. You don't get to decide what I should or shouldn't know about my own husband. The other people in the waiting room were starting to stare now, but Lisa didn't care. Tim tried to intervene, placing himself between Lisa and Amy. Everyone just needs to calm down, he said in that authoritative tone he used when things got heated. But Lisa whirled on him too. Don't you dare tell me to calm down, Tim. My husband is in there fighting for his life because everyone in this family thinks they know what's best for everyone else. Lou grabbed Amy's hand, squeezing it tight, but Amy pulled away. She couldn't accept comfort right now. She didn't deserve it. Lisa, I'm so sorry, Amy said, tears streaming down her face now. I thought I was doing what he wanted. I thought I was respecting his wishes. Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only bitterness and pain. Respecting his wishes? Amy, Jack is 73 years old. He's stubborn as a mule and he thinks he's still 30. That's exactly why he needs people around him who will tell him when he's being ridiculous. The words hit Amy like physical blows. Because Lisa was right. Amy knew Jack's pride, knew how he refused to admit weakness, knew how he hated being treated like he was fragile. But that knowledge should have made her more cautious, not less. She should have protected him from himself. Instead, she had become an accomplice to his denial. I should have called you, Amy whispered. The second I saw him in pain, I should have picked up the phone and called you. Lisa's anger seemed to deflate slightly at Amy's admission, but it was quickly replaced by something worse. Disappointment. Yes, you should have, Lisa said quietly. But she didn't. And now we're here, waiting to find out if Jack is going to survive this, wondering if it could have been prevented if someone had just done the right thing. The silence that followed was crushing. Amy felt like she was being buried alive under the weight of her mistake. She had always been the one everyone could count on. The hoarse whisperer, the problem solver, the person who could fix anything. But she couldn't fix this. A doctor appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand, looking tired and serious. Everyone in the Fleming Bartlett family turned toward him like flowers following the sun. Family of Jack Bartlett? He asked. Lisa stepped forward immediately, her spine straight, preparing herself for whatever was coming next. Amy stayed back, feeling like she had lost the right to be at the front of this line. The doctor's expression was unreadable as he began to speak. The doctor's words hit the room like thunder on a clear day. Mr. Bartlett is stable for now, but we need to be honest with you. He suffered a severe myocardial infarction, a heart attack. We were able to restore blood flow, but there's been damage to the heart muscle. Lisa gripped the back of a chair, her knuckles turning white. The doctor continued, his voice professional but not unkind. What concerns me is that this didn't happen suddenly. The symptoms he experienced days ago were warning signs. Classic indicators that we see before a major cardiac event. If he had come in when those symptoms first appeared, we could have prevented most of this damage. The room went deathly silent. Amy felt her stomach drop to the floor. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The doctor had just confirmed her worst nightmare. This was preventable. Jack's heart was permanently damaged because she had kept quiet. Lisa didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew exactly what the doctor's words meant. Can I see him? Lisa asked, her voice surprisingly steady. The doctor nodded. He's sedated right now, but you can sit with him. Just immediate family for now, please. Lisa walked toward the door without looking back at anyone. Not at Lou, not at Tim, and definitely not at Amy. It was like Amy had become invisible, erased from Lisa's world in a single moment. Lou started to follow, but Lisa held up her hand. I need a minute alone with him first, she said softly. Nobody argued. They watched Lisa disappear through the double doors, and then the family was left standing in the waiting room with the ghost of what could have been. Tim ran his hands through his hair, looking older than Amy had ever seen him. Lou sat down heavily in a plastic chair, her face buried in her hands. And Amy just stood there, frozen, replaying every moment of the last 3 days in her mind like a horror movie she couldn't turn off. "I killed him," Amy whispered. Lou's head snapped up. "Amy, don't say that. He's alive. He's going to recover." But Amy shook her head violently. "You heard what the doctor said, Lou? Permanent damage. Damage that wouldn't exist if I had just opened my mouth and told someone." The hospital room was quieter than Amy expected. Just a steady beep of monitors and the soft hiss of oxygen flowing through tubes. Jack lay in the bed looking smaller somehow, as if the heart attack had physically shrunk him. His weathered face was pale against the white pillows, and his normally strong hands looked fragile resting on top of the blanket. Lisa walked to one side of the bed and gently took Jack's hand in hers. Amy hesitated in the doorway, unsure if she belonged in this sacred space. But Lisa glanced back and nodded toward the other side of the bed. Slowly, Amy moved forward and stood across from Lisa, looking down at the man who had raised her, who had taught her everything about horses and life and doing what was right. Except this time, she had failed him. The irony burned like acid in her chest. Jack's eyelids flickered, and both women leaned in slightly. "He's been drifting in and out," Lisa whispered. "The sedation is wearing off." As if on cue, Jack's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then gradually clearing. He looked at Lisa, then at Amy, confusion crossing his features before recognition settled in. "What happened?" His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. Lisa squeezed his hand gently. "You had a heart attack, Jack. You're in the hospital, but you're going to be okay." Jack tried to sit up, but Lisa placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Don't even think about it. You're not going anywhere." A weak smile crossed Jack's face, stubborn as always. But then his eyes found Amy's face, and he must have seen something there because his expression changed. "Amy, why do you look like someone died?" The question was so typically Jack, so oblivious to the storm he had caused, that Amy almost laughed. Almost. Instead, fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Because I almost let you die, Grandpa." Jack's eyebrows furrowed in confusion, but Lisa spoke before he could respond. "She told us about the barn, Jack. About 3 days ago when you had chest pain and made her promise not to tell me." Understanding dawned on Jack's face, followed quickly by guilt. "Amy, no, this isn't your fault. I told you I was fine. I made you promise." But Lisa wasn't having it. "Jack Bartlett, you listen to me very carefully. You do not get to take the blame for this one. Yes, you were stubborn and foolish, but Amy is an adult who should have known better than to keep a medical emergency secret." Jack looked between the two women, clearly sensing the tension that filled the room like smoke. "What did the doctors say?" he asked carefully. Lisa's composure cracked again, just slightly. "They said you have permanent damage to your heart. Damage that could have been prevented if you had come in when the symptoms first started." The words hit Jack like a physical blow. Amy watched her grandfather process this information, saw the realization settle over him that his stubbornness had cost him something he could never get back. "How bad?" he asked quietly. Lisa looked to Amy, as if deciding whether to continue being the messenger of hard truths or to share the burden. Amy stepped up. "They said you're going to need medication. Lifestyle changes. No more working dawn to dusk. No more pretending you're still 40 years old. And definitely no more keeping secrets about your health." Jack closed his eyes, and for a moment, Amy thought he had drifted back to sleep. But then he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry to both of you. I thought I was protecting you from worry. I thought I could handle it myself, like I always have. But I was wrong, and now everyone's paying the price for my pride." Lisa leaned down and kissed his forehead gently. "We're all paying the price, Jack. That's what family means. We share the good and the bad, the victories and the mistakes. But from now on, no more secrets. If something is wrong, you tell me. Immediately. No matter how small, no matter how embarrassed you feel. Do you understand?" Jack nodded weakly. "I understand." Then he turned his eyes to Amy. "And you, kiddo, don't you dare carry this guilt around like a sack of rocks. I put you in an impossible position. I used your love for me against you, and that wasn't fair." Amy shook her head. "You didn't force me to do anything, Grandpa. I made a choice. Bad choice. And I have to own that. Lisa straightened up, looking at both of them with an expression that was part exhaustion, part determination. You both made bad choices. You both let pride and fear get in the way of good judgment. But here's what we're going to do now. She paused, making sure she had both of their full attention. We're going to move forward. Jack, you're going to follow every single doctor's order without complaint. You're going to take your medication, change your diet, and accept help when you need it. And Amy, you're going to forgive yourself. But you're also going to learn from this. The next time someone you love is in trouble, you're going to choose their safety over their comfort. Every single time. Both Jack and Amy nodded, chastened children in the presence of the only adult in the room. Lisa continued, her voice softening. This family has been through worse than this. We've survived accidents, betrayals, loss, and heartbreak. We'll survive this too, but only if we're honest with each other. Only if we put love above pride and truth above comfort. Amy reached across the bed and placed her hand on top of Jack's and Lisa's joined hands. No more secrets, she said firmly. Jack added his other hand to the pile. No more secrets, he echoed. Lisa looked down at their joined hands, 3 generations of stubbornness and love tangled together, and felt something release in her chest. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, and the fear hadn't disappeared. But underneath all of that was something stronger. Family. The unbreakable bond that could weather even the worst storms. When you get out of here, Lisa said, a hint of her usual warmth returning to her voice, we're going to have a family meeting. Everyone. Lou, Tim, Georgie, Katie, Lindy. Everyone who loves you needs to understand what happened here and why. It can never happen again. Jack groaned softly. That sounds terrible. Lisa smiled for the first time since entering the hospital. It's supposed to be terrible. It's called accountability, Jack. Get used to it. Amy laughed through her tears, the sound surprising all 3 of them. It felt wrong to laugh in a hospital room, but it also felt necessary, like the first rain after a long drought. The door opened and a nurse poked her head in. I hate to interrupt, but Mr. Bartlett needs his rest. You can come back during visiting hours tomorrow. Lisa nodded but didn't immediately move. She leaned down and whispered something in Jack's ear that Amy couldn't hear. Whatever it was made Jack's eyes fill with tears. Then Lisa straightened up and looked at Amy. Come on, let's let him rest. Amy hesitated, wanting to say something more. Something that would fix everything or at least make the guilt less heavy. But there were no magic words, no perfect apology that could undo what had happened. So instead, she simply said, I love you, Grandpa. I'll see you tomorrow. Jack's voice was already drowsy from exhaustion and medication. Love you too, kiddo. Both of you. My girls. Outside in the hallway, Lisa and Amy walked in silence toward the elevator. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of antiseptic hung in the air. As they waited for the elevator, Lisa spoke without looking at Amy. This is going to take time for me to fully process this, to move past the anger and the fear. I need you to understand that. Amy nodded. I understand. The elevator dinged and the doors opened. They stepped inside, and as the doors began to close, Lisa added quietly, but we will get past it, because that's what family does. Amy felt a tiny spark of hope flicker in her chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a promise. A promise that even when trust was broken and mistakes were made, love could find a way to rebuild what was shattered. As the elevator descended, carrying them away from Jack's room and back toward the waiting family below, Amy made her own silent promise. She would never again choose comfort over courage. She would never again let fear stop her from doing what was right. And she would spend every day proving to Lisa, to Jack, and to herself that she could be the person they needed her to be. The elevator doors opened to reveal Lou and Tim waiting anxiously in the lobby. Their faces were full of questions and concern. Lisa stepped out first, her shoulders back, her head held high despite the tears that still glistened in her eyes. He's going to be okay, she announced to the waiting family. It's going to be a long recovery, and there are going to be changes, but Jack is going to be okay. Lou rushed forward and hugged Lisa tightly. Tim clapped a hand on Amy's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity and support. And as the Fleming Bartlett family stood together in that hospital lobby, united by crisis and held together by love, Amy understood something fundamental. Forgiveness wasn't a single moment. It was a journey. And sometimes the people you hurt the most are the ones who love you enough to walk that journey with you, even when every step is painful. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult conversations, uncomfortable truths, and moments when the weight of what happened would feel unbearable. But they would face it together, as a family, with honesty replacing secrets and love overcoming pride.